welcome to another edition of Dinner Starts Here. This time we're not too far from Guelph at Woodrill Farms with Greg. Thanks for having us, Greg.
Hey, no problem. Thanks very much for coming.
Well, so we're kind of at your office here. You've got quite a spread actually around here. What's involved in the farm?
Yeah, so we've got kind of a diverse operation. We're a cash crop farm, grow corn, wheat, and soybeans, kind of in the Guelph area. We also then have a crop supply and grain elevator business.
So supplying other farmers, basically.
That's right. Yeah. So we'd sell anything another farmer would need to buy to grow corn, wheat, and soybeans. We would be able to provide that for him. And a grain elevator, so at the end of the year, we could bring his crop in after harvest and sort.
A bit of a hub for local other grain farmers in the area, too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep, and this is a family business.
That's right. Yeah. So it was my grandfather and great-grandfather moved here in 1929. It was a dairy farm up until the mid-late 60s, and my father turned into a crop farm. And it's just grown and developed since then.
Oh, cool. Well, shall we see what it takes to grow grain?
Absolutely.
All right, Greg, we're kind of back behind your elevator part of the business well, we've got a field here. What are we looking at in this field?
Yeah, so this is a soybean field. It was corn last year. So what we did is we worked it up this spring. We left the stubble there over the winter, so it kind of helped reduce erosion. Then this spring we just worked it up kind of a minimum till system, so we didn't disturb it too much, and came in and planted soybeans.
So then, is that pretty normal? Like, do you always go back and forth, or is the same crop in the same field? How do you do that?
Yeah, so we have a pretty standard rotation where we would grow corn, soybeans, and wheat after one another. And we try and rotate those three crops, and there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. One is to reduce the disease pressure in the field. So if you plant the same crop year after year after year, some of the insects and diseases can build up in that field and affect that crop. So we like to rotate them around, so we have a different crop each year. And so we kind of, if an insect likes to eat corn, but we didn't plant corn, it's not going to live, it's going to die. So we plant soybeans, and that kind of helps control the population.
Stay ahead of it, so to speak.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's soybeans in here now. I mean, it's not a very green field yet.
No, we just planted this one about 7 days ago, so they'll just start to be sprouting underneath the soil now. Maybe if we get some warm weather, they'd all poke through the ground in the next day or so.
Oh, really? So they're fairly close?
Absolutely.
Maybe we can actually even
see
if we can find one here.
Yeah, we dug one up here, so it's we're all ready. So yeah, that's a nice little seedling there. So that's planted 1.5 inches deep is where we wanted to plant it. Yeah, we want to make sure that we're planting it in the moisture. So when that seed starts to absorb wants to absorb moisture and start to grow, we get a nice good start to it.
Now, beside that, and we kind of knocked it off when we were digging it up, is this little pink shell.
Yeah.
What's that pink shell in there?
Yeah, that's right. So that's the original seed coat that was around that soybean. So this ball at the end here was the original soybean, and it's in two parts, but it had a seed coat around the outside of it. And so what we would do is we would treat that seed before it got packaged or put in the ground, and we put a number of different things on it. So there'd be some insecticides to protect it against insects. There'll be some fungicides to protect it against any diseases in the soil. There'll also be some inoculant on it. So we can put that on the seed right there, so when it starts to grow, soybeans are a funny creature. They can create their own nitrogen within the plant. So we put this inoculant around the seed coat, so when it starts to grow, it can create nodules on the roots and fix its own nitrogen from the soil.
So it's kind of like giving it a boost almost.
Absolutely,
like
absolutely. Well, it's a protective thing as well, right? So we've got we're going to put this in this dirty soil, right? We're planting the seed. So what we want to do is we want to protect that seed as much as possible. So we do put that seed treatment on there so that if it does turn cold after you plant and maybe the seed stays underground a little longer than you anticipated, it's got that layer of protection around it.
Now, I mean, those seed coatings, like, one of the words that, I mean, we certainly hear a lot lately is neonics, which is a pretty common seed coating, I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's so controversial. Maybe we can kind of talk about that a little bit more. Why is it specifically there?
Yeah, so it's specifically there to protect our seeds from some insects, right? So we get a bunch of different insects attacking that seed when it's in the ground or when the plant starts to grow, and so we want to protect it.
Now, what damage can an insect do to that?
So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different wireworms and grubs that could come. Most of the time, the first thing they would do is just eat the seed.
Oh, and then it's not going to come up at all.
And it's not going to come at all. It's going to be this little wee juicy little seedling. They'll come along and eat the roots, eat part of it, and it's not going to, obviously, an eaten seed is not going to grow. So
now, I mean, there's a lot of controversy about does it hurt insects that you don't really want to hurt, like bees. Does it? How do you
Yeah.
protect against that? What's the situation around that?
Yeah, so that absolutely, it's pretty controversial. Lots of people are talking about it, and I'm not sure if we have all the right science information around it to understand it completely. The whole point is that when we put the seed treatment on the seed and it's in the ground on the seed, it's doing the job it's supposed to do. Some of the question is there a way where it's getting to a non-target insect or onto a non-target plant? So when we planted it, did some dust come off the planter and some of the neonic seed treatment dust get onto another plant that a bee landed on? So as a group of farmers, right, in Ontario, we've done a whole bunch of things to try and mitigate that. We've put deflectors on our planters that if there is any dust coming off it, it's put into the soil and it's not gotten onto other plants or anything like that.
So then, what are some of the things you mentioned? The seed deflector, or the dust deflector. What does that do to try to, protect the bee or any other insects around?
Yeah, so the whole idea around the dust deflector on our planters is it's an air planter, so it uses a vacuum to suck the seed into a disc. Because when we're planting seed, we want them to be in specific rows and specifically spaced apart from one another. So that dust when we're sucking that air through the planter, it might suck a little bit of dust off the seed. And what we want to do is take any of that air that's coming off the planter and put it onto the soil or into the soil where you're planting it. So it's not getting out into the rest of the environment, and it gets getting absorbed into the soil, and maybe where it's going to help protect from some of the other insects.
Well, and that seems like a better way than maybe just spraying the whole crop at a time.
Well, that's the unfortunate thing, is it's a really clean and really safe way for us to apply these products and protectants onto our seed.
You need some kind of protection.
Absolutely. So we have these insects in our soils and in our environment every year, and we have to manage them one way. Seed treatments have been a really effective way of us managing them in the past. There was other products that we've used a long time ago. Unfortunately, they were more harmful to the people that were using them, and so we switched to seed treatments where it's really safe for the operator because it's on the seed. It's a very small quantity. And if we can control it, keeping it on the seed and in the soil, I think it still is the best way to protect our seed. When we come in and have to spray an insecticide to kill off the insect that's in the plant, absolutely, we're killing more insects than the ones that we're targeting. We're trying to target the ones that reach a threshold that are going to affect our crop, and that's how we make a decision to spray. But if there's other insects in the field, they're going to be affected as well.
All right, so then, you've got this little soybean plant here. How long before it's actually a plant and has soybeans and you're going to harvest?
Yeah, it's going to be hopefully a nice warm summer, and we would harvest our soybeans late September, early October in this area of Ontario. So we plant them in May. We sit and watch them grow all summer and do what we have to manage and make sure we get a good healthy crop, and we'd harvest them September-ish.
Well, hopefully you get a good healthy crop out of a field like this and all the rest. Thanks very much, Greg.
Yeah, no, thank you.